Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and I teach Norwegian. And to be honest with you, I am having some technical difficulties with trying to figure out this live streaming. So I don't know if you can see me or not, but we will try this. Yes, so I was figuring that this time could be a time to, what should I say, to ask questions and see if you have any specific things you want to know about Norwegian. So please ask me questions. So I'll see here if I can go back. So anyway, there's lots of things about the Norwegian language that can be exciting. So please let me know if what you would like to talk about, because I'm kind of letting this be a time where you can decide if you have questions. So let me know. You see here, I'm gonna send the message back. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what some of the things that people have difficulties with, but I know the vowels can be challenging, for sure. So maybe I can do some of that. So we have the vowels, the A, ah. It's more like in father. You know, you have the same vowel sound, at least in the American English where I live, where we say ah as in father. And then we have the E, which is e. And I think of it as similar sound to as the short vowel sound. E as in egg. So that's the Norwegian sound for the E. And then we have the Norwegian sound for the vowel I, which is E, which sounds like the American or the English sound for the vowel for the long vowel sound. For the long vowel sound for E. Okay, so how can we learn Norwegian faster? I just got a question about that. So I would say practice is probably the best way to learn Norwegian, and hearing it a lot. Just, you know, you can go to some Norwegian websites, and that's one way you can hear a lot of Norwegians. One website you can go to is nrk.no. So I'll type that in the chat box here. Okay. So that's one way you can get to listen to the radio. And also you can watch some Norwegian TV shows. I don't know how good your language is. If you're only going to be listening to Norwegian, I would say then, and I mean, if you're not that good at Norwegian and you've never really listened to Norwegian, then it might be a little challenging to just go there and listen. But listening, getting immersed, I would say is the best way of learning the language. Getting some tapes where you can listen. So it depends on your level, how good you are at doing. I mean, if you know any from before, or if you're a new beginner. So that all depends, I would say. But there's also some really good websites that you can go to and practice Norwegian. And I would say Stein på Stein is really good. There's some activities you can do there. And there's also På vei, which is also a place you can go to do some activities. I'm going to put that in the chat box as well, so you can see where that is. Stein there. So those are stein på stein and på vei are both things that are used in Norway to help foreigners who move there to be able to learn Norwegian. So those are all good. Okay, so I see, James, from what you say here to me, that you're a beginner, sounds like. So I think for a beginner, it's definitely listening to simple words and sentences and practicing, just hearing it, saying, different, just practicing. If you have somebody you can practice with, that would be great. But yeah. And of course, going to YouTube is a great place just to listen to the language. So of course, the vowel sounds, I would say, as I said earlier, are a challenge, especially some of the other sounds. I talked about the A, the A, I talked about the E, I talked about the I, which is E. I talked about, I didn't mention the O, which in Norwegian is O. O, that's how you say that sound. And then you have the U, which would be U. And then you have the three vowels at the end that seem to give most English speakers or foreigners a great deal of trouble, which would be E, the Y, A, which you don't have in English, which is A and E that looks like it's put together. And then the Ö, which is a O with a line through it. And then you have the last letter O, which is an A with a circle on top. I'll put those in the chat box too here. Okay, so the last three letters in the Norwegian alphabet: A, Ö, O. So those are in the chat box right now. Well, I see I have another question here from James, where you're trying to find some audiobooks that you can listen to while following the text. So there again, there's an audiobook, på vei, that also goes with the textbook that I talked about, and there you can listen to the audio and you can also follow along as you are reading it. So that's a really good resource, is to try to get a hold of that textbook. And there's also a workbook that goes along with på vei. And på vei is the one that I wrote before, and wrote in a chat box before. So you can just go to that website. It's Cappelen Dam. They are the one who sell that. And let me see, I actually have a copy of it, but I have used it with my students, and it's very helpful because you can listen and read at the same time. So it can be really helpful. So I don't know if you can get a hold of that here, but I think you can order it online. I know you can order it from Norway because I have ordered that one from Norway before. So yes. Okay, let's see here. What other questions? Some say you don't pronounce the G in og, and some say you should pronounce it. Can you put this myth to rest? Yes. When it comes to the word og, you don't say it. Maybe it also depends on the dialects where you are in Norway, because in Norway we have lots of different dialects. I don't know if you've noticed that, but we do. So, but I would say the general rule is that we don't say the G at the end of the word OG, which is, I would say it O. So when I'm using it in a sentence, I would just say, Jeg og Pernille skal gå en tur. I and Pernilla are going to go for a walk. So yeah, so I always tell my Norwegian students that do not say the G. at the end of the letter. So that's what I always tell my students. So it is definitely something I would say. So yeah, so don't say the G at the end of og. Now I said it, but don't say it at the end of, don't say the G. So there's also some other rules about letters that you don't say. For example, in nouns, you usually don't say the T at the end when you use it as a neuter noun and you have the ending. And what I mean with that is, for example, you have the Norwegian word for a country or a countryside. Land is what we would say. And if I'm going to make that definite, and I say the country, I would say landet, and then I would add the et at the end of land, which is spelled land, and then to make it definite, I would just add et. But I don't say the t at the end of the word. Instead, I would just say landet instead of the t, and that's usually the rule, that you have neuter nouns that are a definite form, you do not say the t. So so that's another rule about silent letters. Now, one thing that we do not have silent in Norwegian is silent e's. I know in English we have silent e's, but we do not have silent e's at the end of words like we do in English. So if you have a word like, well, I guess any word, you always say the e at the end of words in Norwegian. But yeah, there's definitely some, ways to say words in different ways, I would say. But yeah, please let me know if you have any other questions, I think in many ways, English, I've heard, Norwegian is not the most difficult to learn, but then again, I'm not sure. I already knew Norwegian from when I was growing up and was born with learning Norwegian, or I grew up learning Norwegian in my home. So I think that's, helps a lot. Yes, so otherwise, I'm not sure exactly what topics you want to talk about. Prepositions are, of course, always difficult, just because you use them in different situations than you would in English. And since my second language is English, I kind of refer to English. But I would say, some of the most common prepositions in Norwegian that we use a lot is på, p, and it's spelled p and the a with the circle on top. I'll put it in that in the chat box as well. So just a minute here. So we have på. Okay, so that's a very common preposition, and it's used in like on the table, and like på bordet står det melk. On the table there is milk. So let me see what other questions I have here. In my knowledge. Okay. So I have two things there. So James, you said you wanted you to know for your, okay. If I know, this is from Behersk. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. If I am not, sorry. So you're wondering if if there is a book about all the nouns, all the verbs, or all the fruits or vegetables, something like that. Well, there is, I have some different books. I would say, like, some of the children's books can be really good. Let me see here. This book right here has a lot of pictures, and it's for children. I bought this in Norway, and I find using children's books and pictures can be very helpful. So this book is called Min første ordbok, And it's just lots of different pictures, so you can go in there, you know, and then get to see a lot of pictures of different body parts. But there's not just body parts. There's also different topics, like you were asking me about fruit and vegetables here. Let's see, there's about cars and just different things that you can see. Another example. So that's a really good book. There's also, I would say, you know, of course, a good dictionary is always good. One that I use is this one right here, which is really thick, as you can see. It's a Engelsk blå ordbok, and it's by Kunnskapsforlaget. See there? Let's see if I get this correct here. And that's a really good one, really thick, and it's both got English and Norwegian. Now, if you're not, English is not your first language, then, you know, you can look into the book that's your first language, which would make more sense than getting an English one. And then there's also, let me see, there's some grammar books that are really good. Here's another one I would say. It's called Engelsk Norsk grammatikk. That one is written by, can you see it? Liv Astrid Greftegreff. So I use that a lot when I teach as well. And then, of course, if you don't, Norwegian is not your first language, and, you know, you're wondering, there are some that are, what should I say, that are from English as well and explain things in English. If you're not in English country or America where I live, it's hard for me to tell you what exactly books you should get because I don't know where you live. Okay, so let's see. So the next thing from Francesco, any tips for a late beginner visiting Oslo and wanting to test out his Norwegian? How to avoid people switching to English once I make mistakes? What's to avoid? So, okay, so if you're going to visit Oslo and you want to test out your Norwegian, I would just, you know, Norwegians, they're really, you know, good at, I would say, just, you know, if you tell them that you really want to practice your Norwegian and that just be patient with you, I think most people would do that. But you just have to understand that, of course, Norwegians want to practice their English, so it can be kind of hard sometimes. But you can just say, please, just let me practice my A in Norwegian. I want to get better. And the only way of getting better is really just letting you talk and listening. And because I know sometimes that can be hard, just like James said, that it, you know, it's hard because they want to talk English. But I would just say to them, you know, just let me try my hardest to speak Norwegian. And if you don't understand me, then I would just say, you know, then ask me what I meant. But let me at least try to reword it. So that would probably be my suggestion to you about that. You know, but yes, I know it's not always easy to have that happen, I guess. So, but Norwegians, I don't know if you've been to Norway before, but they're friendly. As you will also find in Oslo, there are a lot of foreigners, and Norwegian is not their first language, so sometimes you might have a hard time understanding each other. But there's, of course, lots of Norwegian speakers in Norway, because, of course, it's Norway. Yeah, so, yeah, but like I was talking a little bit about prepositions before, and so this book right here too is really good, but of course it's in Norwegian, so you have to be kind of, you know, good, be able to understand what you're reading if you're going to use this book. But this, it talks about this grammar, enkel norsk grammatikk, and it does have some good things about when it comes to, you know, verbs and grammar. I mean, of course it's grammar. It's a grammar book. What I mean is verbs and different tenses and prepositions and things like that. So if you're able to understand a little bit Norwegian, I would highly recommend this book right here. So, for example, some things that it talks about, you know, is different. Is different tenses. So of the verbs. You know, different prepositions actually. So I can, you know, talk a little bit about that. So for example, the preposition I, E, as we would say in Norwegian, is it is used like I live in Oslo, then you would say jeg bor I Oslo. So then you would use E. Some other ones are han bor I Stavanger. So anywhere you live, you can, or you're referring to somewhere where you live, then you would say I Oslo. But the thing is, you have to remember though, if you're saying that you live out in the country, you would actually say jeg bor på landet. So then I know it's like, well, when do you use E and when do you use på? And you know what? It's hard to give you specific rules for that because I just have to turn my phone here. It keeps going off. Sorry about that. It's like I said, it's hard to give you specific rules for when to use some of the prepositions because there's really no good rules, I guess, and that's why it makes it harder. So yeah, there's lots of resources when it comes to books. You know, if you like, I guess, well, the reason I'm mentioning books again is because somebody is talking about that they want some good reference books. What was I gonna say here? Okay. I was gonna see what the next thing here I got from you, James. I have a problem with ETIN because, as you know, most of the grammar are based on knowing which one is assigned. So if I recommend memorizing the endings, yeah, you know, when it comes to the endings on nouns, it is hard to give you specific rules for that because, you know, of course I could say, well, gender, you know, we have 3 genders in Norwegian. We have the masculine that get the EN ending. We have the feminine that get the EI ending. And then we have the neuter endings, or the neuter nouns. It's because these are all nouns that get these different endings. You have the ET ending. And as a general rule, I would definitely say, you know, like girl and woman and anything that's feminine would get the feminine ending. And more masculine things would get the masculine ending. But the funny thing is, with some of the masculine and feminine and the feminine, what's it called, the feminine nouns, is that a lot of the feminine nouns are taking the masculine ending. So like for doll, which is dokke, okay, you could say that's a dokke is feminine, so you would say ei dokke, and then the ending would be dokka with the a. But with that word too, some people say en dokke and they say dokken instead of dokka. So it seems to be a rule that they're some of the feminine words, a lot of the feminine words are taking masculine endings. So if you make a mistake with that, okay, so be it. But when it comes to neuter, it's kind of hard to give you a rule on that too. So I would say just have to memorize it, you know, listen. Like I put a video on the other day where I gave some of what gender they were, and so I would just listen. Let's see here what other comment I have, and then also they don't have feminine when they add, I think. Well, I guess I haven't actually lived in Oslo, but they do add the A on some words. If you listen, they will. But of course, the dialect plays a role for what they say. There's a TV program on NRK that talks about different dialects, and it's called Dialektrike, and it's actually very interesting listening to that about the different dialects in Norway. So yeah, I find that very interesting, and I'm going to write it in the chat box what the name of that program is, where you can find it on NRK. And it's called Dialektrike. So Dialektrike. Okay, so I'm putting that in chat box. You can go to nrk.no and then just type in Dialektrike and you'll find that program. And I was watching some of those shows the other day, and it's really interesting if you want to learn more about the different dialects in Norway. We have a lot of different dialects, as you probably have noticed if you have been to Norway. So just, a good place to go if you know some Norwegian and can understand what they're saying. So anyway, as long as I don't see I have any more questions right now, so I'm just going to go on to some more prepositions here. So like I said, another example of, and the place I'm reading from right now, it's from this book right here, this one. Okay, just a little bit about prepositions. So for example, if you're going to go to the church, you would say, de skal gå I kirken. They're going to go to the church and go to service there. Okay. And then some examples of how to use på. You can say, han bor på Island. So when you're referring to islands, you actually say på, not I. So you're on the island. Jeg er på Grønland. Well, I don't know if Greenland's considered a dialect I mean, not dialect, but an island, but it's pretty big. But Iceland is. So you can say, jeg er på Island, but you do actually say, jeg er på Grønland. So you also say that. And then you also say, like I mentioned before, when you're out in the countryside, you say, jeg er på landet. But when you're talking about in the city, you say, jeg er I byen. So other examples, jeg er på fjellet. I am in the mountains. Jeg er på skolen. I am at school. You say, han er på kino. Han er på konsert. Han er på teater. Han er på restaurant. So with other words, he is at the cinema. He is at a concert. He is at the theater. He is at the restaurant. So those are just some examples of how you use på and I, But the interesting thing is that when you talk about the university, you say, jeg studerer ved universitetet, instead of saying, jeg studerer på universitetet. So just kind of interesting how that works. So anyway, yeah. So then we have some other prepositions. We have til, and how you use til is you use it for like I'm going to somewhere. Jeg skal til butikken. I'm going to go to the store. You can say, for example, you're going to travel to Stavanger. Jeg skal reise til Stavanger. An example, if you're going to send a letter, then you can say, jeg skal sende brev til someone. I'm going to send a letter to someone. Okay, so Janet, you asked me about tror og synes. And skal å komme til å. And I'm not exactly sure what you're asking me when you put down tror og synes. Are you asking me how you say it? Or so if you can specify that would be great. Okay. So just back in the chat box what you're talking about there. Okay. So I'll just go on a little bit more prepositions as long as I don't get any other questions here. Okay. Okay, so Janet, you're saying yes. And so I'm assuming you want to know how I say them? Okay, well anyway, the word tror, it means to believe. You believe something. And you just say tror. You also, like the verb comes from å tro, to believe. And so, yeah, I would add an R after, if I'm using it in present tense, jeg tror. And then also in the past, you would say jeg trodde. And then in the one more, the perfect, I always have a hard time remembering what the verb tense is that's called. But the one that comes after past, then you would say, jeg har trodd. And then after that it comes, jeg hadde trodd. Og synes, the word synes means to think or have an opinion about something. And I would use it, å synes. Jeg synes. Jeg syntes would be the past. Jeg har syntes. And then hadde syntes. So yeah, so that's more an opinion that you have about something. Å tro is more a belief that you have about something. So I would say that. When it comes to skal, so that's often used with future. Jeg skal til butikken. I'm going to go to the store. Jeg skal til Arendal. I'm going to go to Arendal. So yeah, so it indicates something that you're planning on doing in the future, often used with future. And then the other one you're asking about, kommer til å. Jeg kommer til å reise. So I would say that's also used about something you're going to do in the future. So they're very similar to each other, I would say. You know, I mean, you can use them interchangeably. I would say, I can say, jeg skal til butikken nå, or I can say, jeg kommer til å dra til butikken nå. So there's different ways of saying it, I would say. Yeah, I don't know if that helps, but to make it a little more clear for you. Okay, so anyway, then I have the preposition fra, F-R-A, and how I would use that, like, I come from somewhere, or I got a card from someone. Jeg kommer fra England. Jeg fikk et brev fra den og den personen. I got a letter from that and that person. So, yeah, it's a little bit about fra. Okay, so now we have the preposition hos. And that's spelled H-O-S. And I will just use some sentences, that'll be easier for me. Hun var hos oss I går. She was at our house. Or it doesn't say our house, but when you use hun var hos oss I går, it indicates that you are at their house. Okay? So it just means that you're at somebody's house and you're there. Okay? And you can also say hun var hos tannlegen I går. She was at the dentist office yesterday, so I would use it that way. So it's somewhere you are, a location that you're at. That's one way of using hos. So, okay. But besides that, yeah, there's definitely different ways of using prepositions and different than what we do in English. So anyway, I don't know what else right now to talk about. Unless I get more questions, I might just wrap up the live stream for now. So please give me some questions if you have some. I'm just going to write in the chat box here. Okay. Oh, so anyway, I hope you guys are all doing great today and that you're having a great day. And yeah, let's wait a couple of minutes here to see if I get any more questions coming in. Okay, so I have two more coming in here. Can we try? Okay, so Behersk, you're having a hard time to use the Google Hangout? No, I mean the live streaming right now. Is that what I understand? So we can definitely do this again if you want to. That is not a problem. Okay, so James, you're asking me if there are many rules and exceptions to adjectives. Any advice about that? There are definitely rules when it comes when it comes to adjectives. Okay, so I think the main rules when it comes to adjectives is that they go with the gender. Okay, so with other words, masculine nouns and feminine nouns, they use the same adjective. For example, we have, let's say I'm talking about a car, which is bil in Norwegian, and that's a masculine noun. So the adjective that I would use for bil, if I want to say it's a big car, I would use stor, S-T-O-R. Okay, so then I would say en stor bil, a big car. Okay, so the adjective is stor. Then for the feminine word, I would still use stor. It doesn't change. The adjective does not change with feminine words, and it comes in front of the noun. Okay, so if I use, let's say, a doll, which is a feminine word, I would say ei stor dokke. Okay, a big doll. So stor is the same, nothing added to it. And so that's the rule for the feminine words. You use the same adjective for the feminine and the masculine. Now, when it comes to the neuter nouns, you add a T to the adjective. So let's say we're talking about a big tree. So then you would use the adjective et stort tre. Okay, so you would add the T to stor. Instead of saying et stort tre, you would say et stort tre, a big tree. So that's, so you do add the T to the adjective. The other thing that happens to the adjective when it's neuter, when it's plural, you add an E to the adjective. For example, if I'm going to say big houses. Okay, no, I won't do houses because that's a little different. But I'll say big cars, okay? Then I would add the E to stor, and then it would become store biler. So as a general rule, always add the E to the adjective when it is plural. So just for a recap of what I just said, for adjectives, they have to follow the gender. Masculine and feminine nouns, they have the same adjective. So you don't add an ending to that. But if you have a neuter noun, you add a T to the adjective. And then if you have plural, and it doesn't matter, plural can be, any plural noun. It doesn't matter if it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. It is the same adjective that is used when it is used in plural. So then I can say, I'll give you 3 nouns there. One that's masculine, one that's feminine, and one that's neuter. So I can say store biler, store dokker, store vinduer. So now I use the masculine noun, a feminine noun, and a neuter noun. They all use in the plural, and they all use the plural form of the adjective. And then, of course, there are some other exceptions, but that is the main rule, I would say. So that's a little bit about that. Hope that answers some of the question. Okay. Now I'm going to go to Steven. You have a question about hvorfor i setningen de fleste legere synes å være enige om sier man legere? Okay, so that sentence, I don't know, that sentence, de fleste legere syntes å være enige om, I'm not sure where you got that sentence, because that sentence to me is not quite correctly written. But how I would write that sentence, de fleste legene synes å være enige om. Maybe just wrote legere wrong, and you meant to write legene. No, so I'm going to write down in the chat box how I would use that sentence, okay, or how I would write that sentence with the legene. De fleste Legene. De fleste legene. Okay. So there, I wrote it in the chat box right now, how I would say that. So yeah, I think you just misread it or wrote that wrong, the word for leger. So when you're using, I wrote, like I said, with the adjective with the definite article D, then legene has to be definite. It can't be leger, but it has to be legene. And fleste, which would be the adjective here, has to be in the neuter, in the plural form, so we would add the E. De fleste legene. Okay. Next one. Okay, so James, you're saying if the ending is IG or SK, I'm just not quite getting it. If the ending is IG or SK, like, okay, I'm trying to read yours, James. If the ending is IG or SK, like et billig bilde er et vanskelig spørsmål. I am not sure what you mean, James, with that. Can you just rewrite that for me? I'm just going to write it here. Okay. Okay, behärsk. Oh, so you want me to write a sentence with av and om. Yes, okay, or tell you av in a sentence and om in a sentence. Okay, I can do that. Okay, so first we have av. It's a preposition. And one way you can use the word av is jag fick det av fadern min, which means I got it from my father. And I'm going to write that in the chat box too. Okay. Okay, so that's one way you can write the word, use the word or the preposition of. And you see another one we can use there would be in a sentence. Okay. Oh, I'm blanking now how we can use I know how we can use it. I just oh yes. So is used about, for example, every winter I go skiing. So then I can say om vinteren står jag på ski. Okay, so that's referring to every winter. Okay. So that's just some examples of how you can use om. Okay, I'm just... So again, when you're going to use it is often used with something that you do every winter, every spring, every summer, I would say. Just, ways you can use that. So, yeah. Yeah. So some other examples of using is, det er kaldt om vinteren. That's just another example. It's cold in the winter time. So every winter it's cold. That's what that means. Let's example, every summer I go swimming. Then I can say om sommeren svømmer jeg. So just some other examples. Some other examples of using of would be, let me think here. Vi skal dra av gårde. That's another way you can use av, which means we're gonna take off. We're gonna leave. So hopefully that helps when it comes to some of those prepositions there. Yeah. But hopefully that has been helpful. And I guess if there's not anything more people are asking, I guess I'll just wrap it up for now. Let me see if I got any more messages here. Okay, so James, you're saying there's a rule that if the adjective has the ending ig, sk, and a noun of a neuter gender, the ending will remain the same like the example above. Oh, okay. So what about falsk instead of falsk? Okay. So when it comes to the ig ending or the sk, yes, there are some rules where that is the same. It doesn't change. Okay, I'm just trying to read what you're writing here to me, so just a minute here. Okay. The adjective has the ending ig, sk, and the noun of neuter gender, the ending will remain the same like the example above. Et billig bilde or et vanskelig spørsmål. Yeah, so with some adjectives there are definitely some that don't change, you know. But let me see, give you some examples here. I have this book that is really, which is really nice too. I bought this in the United States, so depending on where you are. But it's called Norsk, Nordmenn og Norge. And this one has a really good grammar section in the back. Okay. So let me see here. So just to give you some examples of just, okay, just for example, yeah. So when it comes back to billig, that one doesn't change with the gender. It would say be the same. But if it is plural, then you would add the e to billige. Okay. So if I say billig bilde, and if it's plural, billige bilder. And the same thing with vanskelig spørsmål. Their vanskelig would stay the same when it comes to the different genders. It doesn't change. But if it's plural, then you would add the e. Vanskelige spørsmål. So that is true. But when you're talking about falskt problem, that does add the t. Okay. And the same thing with ferskt eple. So you would do the same thing there as the general rule for the adjectives, right? Because you're saying falsk. Okay, so problem is neuter, so you would add the t to falskt. And if it's not neuter, and I would say en falsk person, a false person, then you wouldn't add the t. And if it's plural, you would say falske personer, false people. Okay? And the same with ferskt, fresh. So there again, I would say en fersk banan, a fresh banana. Instead of, and then if it's apple, then you would add the t, ferskt eple. Okay? And the same thing with frisk. Because et friskt liv, that's neuter, so you would add the t. So that this follows the rule. Okay, so we have Steven. You want me to explain the difference between... Kan du forklare annerledes mellom noen gang og noensinne? Okay, so difference between noen gang og noensinne. Okay, I can try to do that. Noen gang, I would use more like jeg kommer aldri til å gjøre det noen gang. I'm never going to do it. And you're saying noensinne. Yeah, so noensinne og noen gang can mean similar things. Okay, they can. Yeah. Jeg vil aldri gjøre det noen gang. I will never do it, never. Noensinne. And you can say the same thing about noensinne. So they are similar in meaning. I think to noen gang, jeg har aldri sett det noen gang. So then if I say it that way, then it means I've never seen it. Jeg har aldri noensinne sett det. And that means too, I have never seen it. So I would say that they are similar in their meaning, definitely. So, you know, it is somehow, you know, it can be kind of difficult to explain some of these rules just over a live streaming. Since I'm getting in just chat messages from you, then it can be challenging sometimes just to be able to explain it, all of it. But hopefully this is helping. I hope so. So hopefully I answered some of your questions. I really hope so. So. Okay, so the next comment I got that you would like me to make some YouTube videos where I read from a book, and I can do that. Of course, I have done that before, so I can definitely do some more of that. So again, I just want to thank you all for joining me today. So anyway, I hope all of you have a great day and that you enjoy yourself. And so thank you all for joining me. Thank you for joining me for today, and we'll have to do it again. So you guys have a great afternoon, okay? Well, maybe not afternoon where you are at, but here for me it is afternoon. So it might even be nighttime. I don't know where you are. So, okay, take care. Bye.